Mahali, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good, good. Thank you so much for being here, man. It's an honor and a privilege. Love your music.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, anytime. I'm trying to remember how I discovered you. A lot of times when I find really good artists, I try to think like, where was I? And for some reason, I feel like I was in Maui, and I don't know why, but I feel like I heard you on the radio, and I was like, this is really good. You must have a good presence in Hawaii, right?
I mean, only recently. I played my first show there earlier this year, and I'll be going back in a couple weeks. So yeah, I mean, it's incredible over there. So I'm glad. Yeah, I heard some of the songs on the radio. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as soon as I got in there, it must have been my drive over to Lahaina, and I was just like, man, this is good stuff. But love it. Love King of the Low, Breathe and Let Go. I mean, you're such a good writer, great voice. I mean, it's amazing. Tell me, how did it begin? What was the first musical memory that you have growing up where you knew that music was doing something to you more than just the average listener?
I think music always had a pretty special place in my life growing up. I definitely used it sort of as like a healing um thing, and also an instrument to sort of escape a little bit. The first time I really like noticed writing music and like playing guitar was just really when I got a little bit better at guitar. It's probably like eighth grade, when I could play some chords and just like have fun singing over them with my friends. That was like when I first realized I really loved it.
Right on. What were the influences at the time?
I was listening to a lot of Dave Matthews around that time, Counting Crows, Blues Traveler. I was rocking it out to some Jim Blossoms a little bit before that. And before sort of that was like when I started playing guitar. Before that, I was really into like Nirvana and more some of the grungier stuff, like seventh, eighth grade. It's funny how I remember years of my life by grades until I turned 18, and then I remember everything by age.
That's how it goes. Those are the milestones.
Yeah.
Man.
So different influences kind of all across the board. And I think once I started playing guitar, my influences became more specific to guitar playing. After that, I dove headfirst into the jam scene and kind of all the great lead guitar players and a lot of jazz players tried to formulate what I liked in my head.
Yeah, well, I'm checking out your clips live. You can play. I most definitely have mastered the lead guitar. Who were some of your favorite guitar players back at that time?
Early on's like I really liked Ernest Ranglin. He's a Jamaican jazz reggae guitarist. Not a lot of people know him, but he's incredibly influential in that world. So I got a lot of what a lot. I can't play at all like him, but I think through me trying to mimic him is where I like found a lot of my style. But really, once I got heavy into the jam world, it was Jerry Garcia and Trey Anastasio and all those great players. Actually, a mandolin player, Michael Kang from String Cheese Incident. I really loved his lead playing, and I oftentimes found myself trying to mimic like his tone with my lead guitar. But yeah, it's a whole world of at that time in my life, I was listening to just about everybody I could, trying to you know get some of that stuck in my head.
Yeah, well, it worked. It worked. I mean, you still learning? You said.
Yeah, trying.
Well, it never ends. The journey never ends, and so that's cool. I mean, it seems to be the time when great artists start. Eighth grade. You're playing guitar, jamming with your friends. Did you have a band in high school?
No, I was more like a sports dude. I played lacrosse, and that was sort of more like my. I felt like that was my whole life. Guitar was sort of my like escape. I played a lot in my room, um, and I took some guitar lessons in Summit with a guy named Steve Girardi who really like opened up my whole world on guitar. So I remember walking to the train station a lot to go take lessons with him. It was a couple towns over. Um, But yeah, nobody really knew I played in high school. I definitely wasn't like a band kid or anything like that. I think my first time playing like with a band was probably like my senior year in high school. And I was just like filling in. It was only till I got to college that I actually like tried to play in a band.
That's awesome. Where did you go to college?
Castleton State in Vermont. And that's where I met Ryan, Twiddle's keyboard player, and we put the band together from there and started touring as Twiddle for about 20 years after that.
Oh man. And so what was the early beginnings of that? Was it playing like the college scene in Vermont?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of parties. We all lived together in this big house, so we had a lot of parties and played those, and just kind of lived together and played all the time. I only went to school for like a semester or two, and then just dropped out and started doing the band thing full time. And our bass player and drummer at the time were still in high school, so we had to like wait for them to graduate. Once they graduated, we all moved into that big house, and it's a big house on top of a hill in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. Really beautiful, right on a lake. And we wrote all our songs and practiced a lot and got a lot better. And you know, sort of from there, started doing shows all around Vermont, a lot of the ski areas and little bars we could find, and then slowly just started playing out of state a little more and a little more till we started getting a little presence up in Maine and a little presence in like Connecticut, New York City area. And then it kind of just went from there. I think the changing moment for us as a band was when we decided to do a trip to Colorado, and there were, a bunch of booking agents and random people in the audience of this little Irish bar we ended up playing at. We got an email the next day from Madison House saying they wanted to book us, and that was sort of when the real touring started for us. And then from that point on, we were out and going for a long time.
Man, was that a big change? Life on the road and
Oh no, we were young. That was all we ever wanted. We were stoked. It was yeah, sleeping on floors and the whole thing. It was great. When you're young, it's a lot easier to do.
you can take the hits and keep on walking it off.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You travel, you get more experiences on your belt, you meet a lot of cool people. And you get inspired by life. It's just in general. I started noticing a little bit towards, you know, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years in with Twiddle, that more of our like songs that were lyrically driven and a little simpler than some of our other music were doing really well and connecting really well with people. So I think that I had a shift mentally on the type of songs I wanted to write, and I definitely like matured a lot in those moments as to, yeah, as a songwriter and not a guitar player. I think before that I was just focused on playing guitar.
Right. So you started getting deeper with the lyrics and how it connected with your audience.
Yeah, my relationship with the lyrics and the music side of the writing process changed quite a bit when I realized uh, how much more value words can have, and you know impact as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. So I mean, when you write a song, what's your typical writing process? Do you start off with a guitar riff or a melody or
It changes, but a lot of times it's just me with a come up with a chord progression, and as soon as I have the progression I like or whatever that sounds good to me, I just start to mumble over it and hum and try and find words, and then after a couple minutes of that, you start saying sentences, and a song appears. And once I'm at that point, you just keep going and see what happens. It's very rare that I say I'm going to write a song about this and then I go write a song about that. I just sort of see what comes and hope for the best.
so it's like a statue. I mean, you're sculpting it. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen. You just know you're vibing with it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's you can open up a different part of yourself to not like receiving messages, but maybe saying things that are coming from your subconscious, or things that when you're not actively thinking about it, where these ideas and concepts come from. Not entirely sure, but I do know that once I open myself to that sort of style of writing, my best stuff comes out.
Hey, this is Jeff. I'd like to take a second and tell you about this channel. I really encourage you to hit the subscribe button. This really helps out the channel, helps it grow. And also, if you can like and put your comments for this video, that'd so much be appreciated. This really helps me to continue to book amazing artists that hopefully inspire you and continue to grow this channel. Thank you. And do you play off other musicians when you're putting it in the studio, or you kind of do it yourself and show everybody the parts, or?
So it depends on the album and the group of guys. With Twiddle, my first band, we sort of I would write the song and then we'd all get together and really formulate how it sounded live. And then oftentimes we'd play it live a lot before it finally made its final place on how we do it. You know, one night we'd play it a little different or play a cool little section in the middle or something, and we really liked it. We felt it elevated the song and added it and made it a permanent written part. With these solo albums I've been doing, I've been just writing the songs on my acoustic just the way I do and record a little note. And I'll send that to the first album. It was Nate Feinstein, and this album was Spencer Thompson. And they sort of put their producer hats on and, you know, take my music and interpret it sort of how they would hear it, adding all the other instrumentation other than guitar and vocals. And just to get a vibe on it. And then they'll send it to me and say, hey, is this sort of what you were hearing? Is this a cool vibe to keep going on? And you know, I don't think I ever said no. Maybe there was one time where I was like, no, I'm not sure if that's really where I wanted it to go. So then it's just because we're not in the same room. We did all those two albums remote. One was during COVID, so we couldn't. And then, you know, being home in Vermont with kids, it's hard for me to be on the road and then say like, okay, now I'm going to go to Nashville for 3 weeks and record an album when I can do it remotely. So, you know, it's after that process of getting the shell and the general vibe of the whole song down, it's just refining it and then deciding if we want to bring live players into it. You know, like let's get real horns for this. And like, you know, because now we have a mock shell of it, how much we want to keep and how much we want to bring other players into it. And then if we want to work with other people on like a feature, someone else wants to write a verse for it, you know, that's a good place to send it out. So
Man.
that's one way to do it. And then, you know, I'm in the middle of a big album cycle right now. So this first half of it is coming out in May, and then we'll be starting the next album cycle shortly after that. And I'm not sure when that will be released shortly after, like soonish too. So two albums kind of close together. And I did that on purpose because I wrote all the songs at the same time. They're all bodies of work, but all of the songs were crafted in the same year and a half, 2 years of my life, basically. So I just felt that they all need to be released sort of in the same vein. Different albums, different titles, and different producers. So they feel different from each other. But for me personally, because you know, I was in the same place where I was when I was writing all that, they feel too connected to me to separate by a few years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Similar vibe. You want to kind of make sure they're all close together in the release.
Totally, totally. The second album is produced by Johnny Cosmic, who's just an incredible producer. He plays with Stick Figure and produces freaking tons and tons of people. And I've been friends with him for a long time, and it's really excited I got to do a lot of songs with him. So I'm excited for both. And so it's it's been a lot of moving parts lately, but yeah, I'm glad to get all the music out.
So it seems like you're at least with these batches of songs that are going to be released. You said in May, and then a little bit later, like you were just in a creative zone. Like,
I was gone.
How do you get there? How you get in that mode where it's just like, man, I can't stop.
I'm good under pressure. That's one of my strengths. I'm lazy and I procrastinate a lot too. So really what happened for me was a sense of panic sort of set in. Twiddle decided to take a hiatus, and I decided I was going to go out and do this thing on my own and start really focusing on the Mahali band and everything we are doing with this music, which is a different thing than the jam band world that Twiddle was in. But when we stopped, I realized I wasn't like, I felt unprepared. It's like, okay, well, I'm doing this new thing now. I need new songs. I need to start releasing and and I just panicked that I didn't have enough songs, so I just started writing, and I didn't stop writing, and I was writing constantly, and I was always so worried that because at first in my head I was writing a lot of songs that were going to get narrowed down to one great album, and that's how I was going to do it.
Right.
I wanted options, so I was like, let me write 10 for this guy and 10 for that guy, and I'll have like 3 or 4 just to sit with. And what ended up happening is I loved them all, and I didn't want to cut any of them.
Yeah.
It was through this like worried I'm not going to have enough mentality where what like I think is the reason why I wrote that, because that's not usually my style. I'll maybe write 3 or 4 songs a year in the past. You know, Twiddle was a much more live focused band, certainly not that focused on writing new material all the time, which I regret a bit. But for me to like just have this focus of I want a bigger catalog. I love the studio process. I have so much fun doing it. And it was something I really didn't do for the first 15 years of my career, that it feels like new and fun, which, you know, when you're in it for this long can be tough to find those feelings. And so um now I'm not going to let myself get back to just not writing again. So I'm in the process of getting back to it and starting to write the next batch of tunes, which I think will probably be a little different because I'm in a much different place now. So
Would you say it's like a muscle that it's almost like a workout? It's the more you write, the more you get this creative flow. Like you know how to tap into it.
well, that, yeah, for sure. It's like ride a bike. I don't, it's not like, oh, I feel rusty. Sometimes, and this does happen, and I know it's frustrating for a lot of people, the words don't come. When I do it like that, sometimes they don't come. Sometimes it's easier to say, I'm gonna write a song about riding a bike today. And at least you know the content. You know what you need to put into the song, the general gist of it. And I can do that stuff. It's just not my favorite of my songs. They're not the ones where I'm like, wow, that was cool. That was good. Um, so yeah, sometimes they don't come, and sometimes they don't come like after a few times you try it, and it's really easy to just be like, man, did I lose it? Are they ever gonna come back? And I've definitely felt like that. But no, rest assured, when the time is right, they'll be there for you. You just have to like settle down and you know, hope for the best. I have friends though that are just prolific songwriters, and they can just write. They could write 2 songs a day, and they're great.
Nonstop.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
just brilliant. And like I'm not like that. One thing I did learn though in that year or two when I was just cranking out songs was I really let go of a lot of these like rules I had made up in my head about songwriting. Like you need lots of chords, and the all the progressions need to change, the bridge, the chorus, the verse, whatever. And you know, you need to like, for me, I was always so wordy. You know, I was trying to say too much in a little amount of time. So simplifying things a lot was good for me. Not worrying about if it's the Sweet Home Alabama chord progression, because I'll do my own thing with it. Like I had this weird thing in my head that people owned chord progressions, that if there was a big radio song out there that had these chords, I couldn't use it. You know,
Right.
once I let go of like, nobody owns chords at work, as long as your melodies and everything and the feel's totally different, go for it. And so that helped me a lot with like simplifying, being like, oh, let me just try these 2 chords and write a song. And, that's sort of what freed me up and made me not like harp on a tune for like 3 days, just trying to get like a interesting, unique, original chord progression together.
It's the art of letting go. Just stop. Yourself from the rules that you have for yourself.
Totally. Yeah.
And then once you do that, it's like all bets are off. It's like boom. It's
And watching my friends do it like helped me so much, just being like, yo, but that's the chord. Like, nah, man, but who cares? It's gonna sound like this. And they play it and you just lose track of whatever I was hearing before, and also their like just eagerness and happiness to just write a song. Doesn't have to be the greatest song on earth. Just like write a song. That's important too, is just to like not try to write your next hit, just like write a song for the sake of it.
just right.
Just gets everything going. Yeah.
Yeah, just get it out, man. Your voice is a fantastic voice. You've got soul.
Thanks.
You've got so much feel. How do you develop a voice like that? I mean, was it one of those things that trial by error, playing with Twiddle? I mean, how did you get to where you are now?
I don't really consider myself a good singer. I think my voice is probably like where I'm the most self-conscious about myself as far as everything. But everyone always tells me nobody likes their own voice. So maybe that's natural or normal for me. I sang in like I was a church choir kid, and that's where I learned to sing. And I think I forgot everything because when we started with Twiddle, I really had no clue. I was sort of a little raspier, a little more growly, and wasn't focused on singing. I didn't focus on singing live till way later into our career when I was listening back to live recordings and being like, man, I really don't love my singing. And so I had a little more like presence of mind while on stage of my singing, which was something I wasn't doing, like thinking about it more while I'm there to try and, stay where I need to be. But no, I think you sing more, you do it a lot, and if you're doing it most days of the year, it's a muscle, it gets better. I think a lot of my vocal journey and my comfortableness with my voice, I'm very comfortable with it now. I feel totally good in the studio. Like vocal days are my favorite days. I'm really good at those. Guitar days are my worst days. Though you don't even want to talk to me on a guitar day. I get frustrated with my playing very quickly, but never on vocal days. I love singing in the studio. So I think maybe when I found more of a passion for that, I, decided to just go for it, pay more attention. Um, got some decent vocal warm ups that I do. Should probably do more. That's actually a thought I had this year was to maybe take singing even like more seriously and actually get some vocal lessons with some solid warm ups because I really don't warm up. I smoke blunts and that's not a good warm up.
That's original form of warming up.
Yes.
Little puff.
Yeah. But yeah, so I appreciate that you like it. Thank you. I'm always so thrilled to hear that because, it was always
It's a great voice.
thanks, man.
Yeah, it's great. I love your voice, and yeah, I mean, I always wonder about that. How do great singers get to where they are? Because it always seems to be kind of like a back way into it. You start off playing guitar, and then it's like, well, who's gonna sing? Okay, you're gonna sing, and then it's you just figure it out, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think
Man.
you know, I think it just was not a focus of mine for a long time, and then when I started to care about it more is when I noticed growth.
Very cool. So, one of the things I noticed is that you have also amazing collaborations. And how do you find great artists to collaborate with that have that same vibe that you're looking for, whether you were influenced by them or there's something about them? Like, how do you find that connection where you know it's going to work?
When I'm like in the beginning writings of a tune, or when I hear something back from a producer that's fully mocked, I almost hear someone like right away. There's a lot of vibe songs where I'm like, ooh, I could maybe hear this guy on this song. Let's like maybe tilt it a little more in his vibe. So when we send it, he feels at home, like right away. So that's like one way to do it. But honestly, for me, outside of a handful of features I have, I know all these people and are friends with them. Um, the Affection, the reggae record I put out, the last record I released, it had a ton of features from that world, and I was new there. So Nathan was in the band Iatera, knows everybody in that scene. He really hooked me up with all those features. Um, I don't know what he said to them. I don't know what he vouched for me or everybody he talked to basically said yes. So he got me a lot of those big features, and it's a beautiful bridge because now I know all those guys. And now when we're at a festival together, I can walk up and say what's up because we've sung together, and that you know sort of introduced us to each other. So it's kind of a cool way to do it. But I've always loved collaboration. I think that that's such an important thing. Where still these days, bands can feel a little bit like sports teams. Like my sports team's better than your sports team in certain scenes. Between bands, and I think that like working together it's just a beautiful way to one bridge that gap, but also expose your buddies to your fans, and you get exposed to their fans, and it's a good way to get the music out there, and also have different flavor. I feel like if I just did everything myself from producing it to writing it and everything, it would, it would just have this one sound, which is cool. But I think I much prefer working with other people because everybody new brings something different to the table. So you never get bored. You're always, getting re-inspired and there's more creativity flowing. And that's the best way to make a song, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite artists, Prince, was always credited for being this self-made machine. He could do it all himself. You just lock him in a studio, and he's gonna release all this crazy stuff, which was true. But when I look back at his work, honestly, the best stuff he did was when he was collaborating either with solo artists or his different versions of his bands. And it's not like every song had features of other players. Some of them really were just him, but you could still feel that he was still bouncing off that other creativity, and it was better versus some of the stuff I would listen to and be like, yeah, I could tell he's in the studio alone right now, and it's still cool, but it just is there something about collaborating with someone else that just gives you that, it's like a spark, it's like that flavor.
Yep, I agree. And a lot of people I know that are producers that are also artists, and they're producing their own work and doing everything, but they always have like three or four dudes that they bounce everything off of for opinions and whatever and ideas that are like in their world, that help them make their decisions. And because I think everybody needs that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's creativity meeting creativity. It's more boundless. It's like it lives on even more. And the same question is like, when you're trying to find a good producer, how do you know when the mix is right? I'm sure you probably in the past have had producers that you got with them, and man, I don't know. I don't know if there's a connection. Like, how do you get there?
I may have been very lucky, and I've only really started working with producers solo. Twiddle really didn't do it until our last album. And we did it with a guy named Clint Bierman here in Vermont. And he's brilliant. He's one of my dear friends. And so I was happy to do that with him. And it was very easy because he's one of our good friends. But I've lucked out. I actually have not had a bad experience with a producer. They've all been different. But I loved each one of them, just the same. Like Eric Krasnow was the first person to produce anything of mine. And one, he was a hero of mine. I mean, one of my absolute favorite guitar players of all time. So just to think I was going to make a record with him was incredible. And then meeting him being so cool and just so awesome was like even more mind blowing. That like one, meeting your heroes, and two, they're fucking awesome. That's and I love Breathe and Let Go. I think that whole album is some of my best music, and you can hear Eric all over the album. His playing is on everything, and so for me, that was just like pinch me, like that kid. This is incredible. So that whole experience and working with him, I learned so much. I learned so much about recording, about guitar playing. He really instilled in me the necessary tools to work with other people, I think, because he was sort of the first guy I ever did that with, just one on one. And then the next guy I worked with, Nate, who's my buddy, that was just COVID, and it was by accident. It wasn't on purpose. I was writing and I wrote this tune, and it reminded, I was basically stealing his vocal runs. And so I sent it to him like, yo, I wrote this. Check out me, basically saying like, yo, I was writing it in honor of you or I tear or whatever. Um, and the next day he sent me back the song fully mocked, like with drums, bass, just like as he would have made it. And it was so fire. It was so good. So I went home, recorded my vocals and my guitar, sent it back. Boom, song is done. And we had a single. And we were like, what the hell? So we just put out one single just because it was so good. And so that was just something we did for fun for the rest of COVID. I would send him a tune and he'd mock it up and I'd send it back and forth. And we weren't like doing this like, yo, let's make an album. It was just like, we're bored. Let's do something together. And so, I think we had like 6 or 7 songs done. And I was like, bro, we have a lot of tunes done here. Why don't we just bang out a couple more and call it an album? And that's how the album Affection was born and came to be. Was not out of like it wasn't purposeful. I wasn't like I'm gonna go and do a reggae album next. That's what I want to do. I love reggae. That's, you know, one of my absolute passions and favorite musics of all time. But I wasn't thinking that was where I was going next musically. It just happened to be that way, and I loved it. And I'm so proud of that album. I really think all the songs are great, and Nate's production is just amazing, and it has such a sound that is his own. It's really tight. Actually, I have two songs off the new album he produced as well, so got
Would,
to bring him back.
sure. Would that be Sunshine with Seven Suns?
That is it. That's
Another great song.
Yeah. I'm really stoked on that, and I really wanted to work with someone from Hawaii, and you know, I had heard a few of their early singles and loved them, so I was really excited when they agreed to do it. They brought the perfect. I mean, they wrote the perfect verse for that song. It's unbelievable.
How'd you get started on that one?
Actually, it was about my dog that passed away. My dog Sunshine was she was 15, I believe. She passed away about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago. It was right before winter, last winter. And you know, she was our baby. We had three Goldens, all from the same litter. And the other two had passed away before her, so she was the last one. And you know, it just hit me really hard, I think, when she passed away, because they were all gone, and such a big part of our lives the last like 15 years. So I was writing those chords, and the chorus came out, which is, you know, the come back to me thing, which that's very natural. That's how I was feeling. But I didn't want to write this is a song about my dog dying and have it be obvious about it. So
Right.
in that moment, I thought, let me just write it about missing the sunshine in the winter, which is how I was also feeling. It was so gray and shitty out, you know? So I decided that was where I was going to go, and just make it this big metaphor that I wasn't even sure I was going to tell anybody it was about her, you know? But I figured, what the hell not? Why not? And
That's awesome.
I didn't tell the guys from Seven Sons that it was about that either, because I just wanted them to write it about missing the sunshine, you know, and whatever that meant to them. I
Right.
It would especially probably crush it, since a lot of them from Hawaii. So yeah, that's what that song's about, and I'm really happy that it's doing so well. It's being played out there on the radio, which is so great, and I'm going to perform it with them. I think April 12th or something like that at the Hawaii Theater. I'm very excited about that.
That's so cool. I really like how you made it a metaphor about missing sunshine. I mean, it's a way that anybody can relate. I mean, they can relate to it either way, of course. You know, missing a family member like your family dog, but also putting it in that context is so kind of it's poetic.
Yeah, it was a nice way to honor her, you know, and I'm happy that it's out there now, for sure.
Can you tell me more about "We Are" with Little Stranger?
So I love that track. That track has quite a long history. I wrote the chords maybe 10 years ago, because it's the only thing I can play on piano. I So for years I've been going that intro riff. I've been
Uh
playing that every piano I see for the last like 10 years. Like, you could ask the guys at Twiddle, like that was the one thing I played. And then I was with Clint Bierman, who produced Every Last Leaf in our studio here in Middlebury, and I was like, man, I got to do something with this. So we laid down I played those chords. He recorded it. I beatboxed the drums, and we made this little groove with it called Big Bunny, and it sat like that for a while, and then one day I decided, let me write some lyrics to this. So I wrote my verses and the "We Are" chorus. And it was just us fucking around in the studio, and I sent it to some friends, and like there was like this weird little cult following behind the tune that like some of my friends had. They all loved, like, when are you gonna put that song out? And it was like really, I don't want to say crude, but it was very stripped down and not what you hear now. Um, and then I met Denim, uh, who's a brilliant artist and producer from Los Angeles. And we were in Malibu. I was working with Cisco Adler on Real Good Day, that tune. And so
Nice.
So Denim came up to work with me in Cisco, and we had a great day just hanging and writing tunes. And I was like, man, I got this song that like desperately needs help. But I think the song is really good, but like it needs like someone to take it and do something cool with it. He's like, yeah, man, send it to me, send it to me. So I sent it over to Denim, and he just turned it into a monster. Like overnight, he sent it back. He's like, what do you think, man? And I was like, woo, I was floored. So, that from that point on, it was just like we're doing little refinements and trying to find the right feature for it. And then,
Right.
I'm very good friends with Andy Frasco, and Andy was like, "Man, you got to meet the Stranger Boys. You gotta link with them. You guys got to do a song." So I think he introduced us like in a text thread or something. It was like, y'all need to work together. And so I sent them that, um, and they dug it. And then I saw Kevin in Buffalo, and he just like pulled his phone out and he's like, "Yo, what do you think of this?" And just like rapped over it, like playing on his phone, and it was sick. And then they recorded, sent it over, and that was that. So that's how that kind of happened. But it was a long journey because like between when we did Big Bunny and when Denim got his hands on it was like probably 2 years, maybe longer. So like
Wow.
it's just been sitting around for a while waiting for the right guy to like make it a banger, and it was Denim.
Man, that's inspirational because I think everybody thinks that this stuff just one, two, three, go. I mean, sometimes it takes a while and a couple different versions, right?
Yeah, that one specifically. I always just loved it. But I think because it was like my piano thing, but I was like, nah, it's not a song. That's just something I do. Yeah. And now my,
Man.
my piano player always messes it up. And I'm like, bro, it's the only time I ever get to do it. Like, you want me to show you how to play that?
Let me show you how to play this.
Play that. He's like, come here. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of beatboxing, I was checking out your live clips, and I love how you do the looping and and texturing the loops when you play live. I mean, how did you develop that?
That was my way to eat. When Twiddle was first starting out, those really early years I was talking about where we all lived together in that house and we were sort of just playing around, I didn't want a job. So I just played every little bar I could find all over Vermont, 3, 4 nights a week for whatever, $100 to $200 a night. Just doing the loop act because soloing lead guitar was my strength. Um, so I needed a way to do that. So I bought a loop pedal so I could play over you know, the rhythm recorded. But growing up, one of my favorite musicians ever was Keller Williams. I listened to a lot of Keller, and he's the loop king. So I grew up going to his shows and watching what he did with the beatbox early on, but also adding the bass. And as time went on, Keller and us met, and he sat in with Twiddle, and then I was able to open up for him a bunch, doing the looping thing. And so I kind of got to watch one of the best do it for a long time, and sort of slowly shift my setup to look a little more like his, to where now it's basically identical to Keller's on stage. We approach it a little differently, but yeah. So that's sort of how it went. I did this to make money. It was a beautiful thing when I didn't have to do the loop thing anymore. But it's like I've been doing it just as long as any of the other things. So it just feels very natural to me. I want to expand.
Man,
I'm working actively now, working on making it a little more complex and a little bigger sounding, since I'm doing so much of it.
you do it well, and it sounds so full, and it sounds so live. I mean, that's just years of getting it done.
There's no click tracks or anything, so there are oftentimes imperfect loops where I have to adjust the other loops to the little imperfection on the first loop. So it can be tricky sometimes. Um, it's all an internal metronome I'm going off of with all of those. So I do my best.
Well, you do it well. Like I said, it sounds really fresh, and especially the beat bots and stuff like that reminds me a little bit of how Timberland. He must make his beats. Seems like he just beat bots and then drums, and it's got that same fresh feeling.
Yeah, actually, we are this is we're talking about that. If you listen closely, you can hear the original beatbox track from Big Bunny. Denim kept it in. You can hear me
Really?
going. It's there, and if you listen closely on certain like turnarounds, you can hear it. So that's the only song I know that I've released that my beatbox was kept on it for like the actual song.
So tell me about life on the road. Do you have any pre-ritual things that you do before the show to get you into the zone, get you in that mode?
It's been gone through various different styles of touring, from broke in the van to tour buses to bandwagons, to kind of every level in between. Um, I used to drink a lot before the shows just to like loosen up and relax. I don't do that anymore. Now it's more pacing. I pace a lot. uh no, I just try to remind myself to breathe a little bit and relax. It's easy to like just kind of like get a little before you play. I don't like to hurry up and wait. If it was up to me, I'd walk into the building, walk on the stage, play the show.
It's the waiting, because then it's like one, two, three, go.
Yeah, I should probably figure out some kind of calming ritual or something like that. It's amazing after all these years you still get nervous. Weird.
That is amazing, because I think most people in the audience would think, man, he's done these shows. Like what could make him nervous? But it's still there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's nerves or anxiety or whatever it is, but I definitely feel it. It's never like affected me on stage. It's literally the second I step on stage, it's gone. It's just like right before those 5 minutes before, it's like, yeah,
And then you walk on, put on the guitar, and then
yeah, it's gone right away.
boom. Can you tell me of a performance, whether with Mahali or Twiddle, that over the years that you really felt like was a breakthrough in your career? Maybe you was getting exposed to a different audience that you had never played for, where you're like, man, now we're on a different level now.
Early on with Twiddle, it felt like there were these endless, amazing stepping stones. Like when you're in a new band, you're every time you're coming back to a city, your next step is to get to the next venue in size, right? Hopefully landing at the theater eventually in that whatever the 2,500 cap theater in that city. When Twiddle started like really taking bigger steps in certain, I think we had a big show at the Capitol Theater. It was our first time playing there, and we sold it out before doors. I remember that really being a big deal uh, for us, and just it felt like a change of trajectory. Obviously, our first Red Rock show was, you know, those are always life changing.
Is there a moment when you're playing those shows where you're like, man, we're breaking through?
Oh, yeah. When you see the crowds and people aren't leaving and people are singing along. For me now, that's like what I'm starting to see is people are singing the words to the songs that were just released. And I never had that with Twiddle. And that is such a cool thing for me to see. Um, you know, it's an interest. I'm in an interesting spot because I sort of took a walk back through time with this act that I'm doing now. Twiddle ended at such a right up here, but I had to start down here with Mahali again and do everything that Twiddle did, and play all those venues and meet all the fans and grow it, and organically that's how I want to do it. um and so it's beautifully humbling, and also I have such a different perspective on it all now. I'm doing it all over again, much wiser, and that's sort of what it feels like. And I'm grateful I'm doing it again. A lot of people don't get that opportunity.
It's true. That's an amazing feeling. Like you're able to kind of reinvent the situation and have a second go, and it's flowing.
Truly, I mean, I can definitely cut out some of the bullshit I dealt with.
Things are always smoother the second time around.
Right.
Speaking of which, I'm sure that there's people in the audience, they look at you and they say, man, you know what? He's just got a lot of talent. Things just work well for him. Life just flows. Can you tell the audience about a time in your career things didn't flow so well, or there was a big disappointment with your career where you're like, I don't know how I'm gonna get around this, and how you work through it.
I mean, right now I'm in a really tough time in my career. I'm grateful for it, but it's hard. I mean, where I'm sitting right now, restarting as a father of five with quite a bit of overhead is a risky thing to do on my part. The money's not there when you're starting over again. Um, so it's, I'm certainly not going to give up or complain about it. I think that, I have to, uh, I guess that's what I was saying about just being wiser this time around. There's a lot more I can appreciate, uh, the little things. You know, I was so focused on the future with Twiddle, I didn't stop to smell the roses at all. I think I missed out on a lot of beautiful moments and things throughout that journey. I mean, we were crazy kids. We did a lot of drugs. We drank a ton. We were like crazy little rock and roll rascals. And so everything was a big blur. And to be able to be more present on the journey this time is also kind of a very cool blessing. But it's tough. I'm not struggling. The fans are supporting me and they're listening to music and they're coming to the shows. I'm just impatient. I'm always been an impatient person. Patience is something I've worked on my whole life. Uh, because like I know where it can go and I really believe in it. I just need to give it a little nudge.
But that's probably part of your success. The impatience of knowing that you got to push through has probably been part of your fuel, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You got to believe in the dream and do everything you can to go get it and not let any of those little thoughts creep in your mind about, changing your original vision. That's the hardest thing for me is to just like trust myself and love myself to do it the way I know how to do it. It's just so many outward influences all the time in life and in business and in everything. It's hard to like stay the course that is the right one. Just a lot of moving parts.
How do you maintain it? You just kind of sometimes just breathe and
I mean, I fumble it horribly a lot of the time, but recently I've you're just checking yourself, really letting yourself feel what you're feeling and like taking a moment to feel it. When I get really angry, I used to just respond like immediately and in my head always fully backing whatever it was I was about to go do. Thinking
Right.
I was fully in the right and like and that's like the part of myself I hate the most. And I definitely had this like shitty side where like you piss me off, like I very just straight to the point and very harsh, and
Well,
I hate it so much. And luckily I very that guy very very rarely comes out these days. But when he does, I just have this if I can at least acknowledge to myself that I'm there, I'm feeling that, you know, the just the pause of acknowledging and being like pissed, you know, prevents me from reacting because I know then in that one moment to just sit with it, and you're gonna make a much better decision later dealing with it. You can always deal with the problem. There's nothing wrong with feeling mad. It's okay to feel what you feel. There's there are no wrong feelings, but how you act on them is something I'm learning to be better at.
absolutely. Would you say that that's something that you put into your sound? Because when I listen to it, it mostly feels so positive, so bright, so soulful, so comforting in a way.
I've always called myself the middleman, especially with those songs, the ones that seem to have a very like uplifting sort of wiseness to them. Uh, I'm not sure. I can't say for 100% that like I came up with those words in like in deep thought. For me, it's like however why they come out of me and whoever send them or whatever is the reason for me. There's a big part of me that believes that they're for me. That 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 what I'm writing down and what I'm saying are meant for me to hear. And it's taken me a long time to realize that as helpful as they can be for everybody else, I'm the one that needs to be listening the most. And that's tough because who the hell wants to listen to themselves? Because never once before those words came out of my mouth or I wrote them down did I ever have that thought, you know? So
Meant to be. Wow, that's deep. So tell me what's coming up for you. I know you got a West Coast tour coming up here, and then tell me all about it.
West Coast tour leaving on Tuesday. Really excited to get back out there. I feel like the West Coast was a place that I always wanted to play more with Twiddle. And so yeah, I've made it a focus to try to tour out there more and as much as possible. So glad to be getting back out there and building those markets and meeting those fans. I've got a busy year. I really am playing as much as I can and got I'm in the middle of the biggest album cycle I've ever had. So one or two more singles and the album's out and then the next single start and then the next album will be coming out. So between the touring and the content that needs to be made for these singles and albums, because that's something we have to do now. I'm pretty busy, pretty slammed, but excited about it all. All good stuff. And then summertime comes and it's all awesome festivals and nice weather. So excited for that.
Can't beat the weather in the summer. Fantastic. So tell everybody where we can find you online.
Instagram's at Mahali Music. I believe the same with Twitter, mahalimusic.com, Mahali on Spotify and all where you can find the music. If you're interested in listening to any of the stuff I was talking about with Twiddle, that's all under Twiddle Music, just the same way. And yeah, look out for the new singles and album coming in May. Very excited.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a great chat.